Welcome, everyone. Today is another beautiful day in January. Welcome to Between the Lines. Today is our part of our Sayang cycle. Uh, and Sayang in Malay means love or affection or care. And Lucian and I discussed about what we loved most about this community is the fact that our artists and we are bringing people in who can see another one another and we decided that we wanted to share this week with Diane Murray Ward. And last week we had Matt Cummings, who was our poet who uses ASL to interpret his poetry. And I particularly picked Diane because I knew her love for ekphrasis, as well as dance and movement, and also advocating for people who have diverse abilities. And today, of course, she has given us a really different prompt about what does it mean, what would happen if we lost one of our senses or more? And would we miss it or not? What would we do? And Diane showed me a video about Sue Thomas, a person who also lives with deafness, and was very inspiring that she, it's not just about losing a sense, but what does it mean to live with the current state and the current gifts that we're given. And I've been meditating and thinking about that all week. So before we start listening, Diane, do you have any opening remarks? Why did you pick this?
Well, I really I wanted to pick Sue Thomas as an example because um, the actual Sue Thomas, the real Sue Thomas, just recently died. There was a TV program that was made about her work with the FBI, and it is an assumption that people make that there's an actress who played her, who Diane Bray, who is partially deaf, who played her in the series. And the series was called Sue Thomas FBI because the real Sue Thomas worked for the FBI. And it's the assumption people make that all deaf people know how to lip read. That's not true. But Sue Thomas, the real Sue Thomas, was able to use that to her advantage. So she would look at surveillance tapes and all kinds of information that the FBI was recording, and she'd be able to tell them what the conversations were about. Okay, she was an asset in that respect. So, but she had a wonderful career as an FBI agent, and as I said, she just recently died. The person who the story is based on just recently died, and I said, this would be a wonderful honor to her and to the actress Diane Bray. Diane Bray is a wonderful actress. Her husband is also a deaf actor who also appeared occasionally on the program. Okay. Uh, and so I just thought that would be a wonderful way. And the other thing is that I also wanted to share with you, and you can put that in the chat if you can. There's a wonderful dancer. Her name is Victoria Bueno. Victoria Bueno has no arms. She is a wonderful dancer. So you see, as you said, people abilities, this is what they love, this is what they do. They are not stymied by I don't know if it's a limitation or not to them. It's not. They've made it work for them. So when people complain about how they can't do this or they don't have that, I find these individuals inspiring. And let me just say this, it's so funny. When I mentioned Mr. Cummings last week, I see why he doesn't use his real name, because I put him in a race car and it's the wrong Will. And so, but of course, to me, he could do anything and everything. So as I said to Kemlin, oh, wow, it wasn't the real guy. But anyway, I think he should take up car racing. It was my mistake. I apologize. I put him in a racing car because I think if you really love to do something, you just go ahead and do it. So I'm inspired by individuals. I've been inspired by students and others who take those challenges and say, "I'm still capable. I can do this, that, and the other." And I think that's a lesson for many of us. So I did write a piece about. It's called "The Pirate," and this was an experience of mine. And I'll explain it after I read it. I closed an eye and became blue, added to my blackness. I was already sad blue because I was denied learning on occasion. Yes, even today. I closed the use of an eye to learn about myself and met a woman so perturbed I had to tell her that it was for a graduate school course. She cried and was so relieved. I had to tell her I was relieved too, because I was a fake one eyed pirate. I'm so grateful that my patch could be removed. However, I remained black and blue. That's the end of that piece. So let me give you the backstory. Um, I have a graduate degree in rehabilitation, and in one of the courses, we had to pretend that we did not have the use of a sense, an arm, a leg, whatever. I worked for security, so I decided to wear a patch over one eye, like pirates do, right? Arr, right, we know pirates, right? Well, I explained to my boss that it was temporary. Really, nothing happened to me. But a customer, she was so upset that I had what she thought was one eye. She started crying. And I had to take her aside and explain to her, look, see, it's for school. It's for school. But you're so young. You lost your eye and you're so young. And I felt so bad. I had to tell her that it was temporary. And the blue, well, you see, I'm a black woman. So there have been times when I've been sad. And there's, of course, that adds to the fact that I knocked into a lot of things and became black and blue because, of course, I only had one eye. And my perception was so off. I was knocking over stuff. I was banging into stuff. Okay. But I was so moved by this woman just breaking down in tears when she saw me with a patch that I had to tell her the truth. So, um, well, you add that in with race in America, where I live, and you can see why that was very poignant for me. So I had to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you for your story that goes together with the prompt. I had no idea that you actually was challenged physically to carry out that prompt earlier in your life. Hmm. Yesterday was King Day in the United States, and I was having a conversation with some of my friends online about how do we live Dr. King's dream. And I was so proud to say that it is in this community is one of the ways that I'm humbled that I get to have these conversations about um, difficult subjects sometimes, but it makes us human, Diane. And I want to thank you all for being a part of this community, for uh, keeping me human, challenging me to be more human. Thank you, Diane Murray Ward, for this amazing prompt. Would anybody like
Say,
to go? Yes,
I was
Ian.
just gonna make a comment. I mean, there are people with both eyes open who still bump into things metaphorically in a way. So, in a sense, you can take it. You know, you can be fully able and still be a complete dog. having to do without one. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I've had situations where I've been slightly incapacitated. Like when I had with my Achilles tendon strain, I had to spend about 2 or 3 weeks with a plaster on it, and that was just hell. Having to try and get around with on crutches, it was, you know. So you have to kind of put everything into perspective when you see people who are obviously having far bigger barriers and problems than you to have to cope with or negotiate in their lives. You know, skin color is another one. I have no idea what it's like to walk down the street with a different colored skin and people looking at you or making comments. And it's only when people who've have experienced that share that with you that you can actually come to some sense of perspective, but you have to be receptive to it. So it's actually reminds me of a line with Frank Zappa. It says, "What's the ugliest part of your body?" And he goes through this whole, there's some say it's your nose, some say it's your toes. And then he comes up with the punchline is, "I say it's your mind," which is quite a profound thing, but in a rather sort of humorous, offhand kind of style. But no, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ian, for that reflection in response to Diane. Would you like to share your piece?
Yeah, I've got two actually. They're only short. They're only about a minute or so each. First one is an older one from a couple of years ago. And the second one is obviously a sonnet. But the first one is more kind of allegorical, which kind of relates to what I just said in my last sort of remarks about Frank Zappa. So this one's called Blind Faith. If you just close your eyes, you can make everything disappear. Put it out of sight and mind. You won't even hear a thing if you stick your fingers in your ears. Just wish it all away. Wash your hands of all that shit. No fuss, no need to shout. Your problems will all vanish. No more strife or worries left to care about. If you just shut your mind off, put up a wall of silence stretching from ear to ear. You can make it all go away, bury it deep inside your head, banish all those fears. You can carry on all day and night, and with a little perseverance, keep it up for years. In fact, if you're so determined, if you're so inclined, you can make the whole world vanish. Spend the rest of your days in the darkness of your ignorance, remaining willfully blind. So that's the first one. And this one is fresh off the press. The ink is barely even dry. I just wrote this one yesterday. This is sonnet number 56. A loss of sense or a sense of loss. If I had to lose one of my senses, how could I choose which to do without? To see beauty would be no recompense, with no tongue with which to sing out its praises, nor would it suit my pleasure to lack that sense of tenderest touch, to be robbed of those sensual treasures that mark the consummation of true love. What then, lacking a sense of smell, to miss the lingering aroma of your perfume? And what anguish, suffering, dull deafness, locked within the silence of a lonely room, while being blind would sear all my other senses, so that they would shrivel up in pity too. That's me, it's mine. Thank you for listening.
Diane, you are smiling and grinning. What is on your mind?
I wrote in the chat, that was wonderful. That was wonderful, Ian Max. Thank you. Both pieces. It encapsulates so much, and the topic is universal. It is not for just one set of folks. It's universal. And I think the acceptance that so many people look to have, because people size up people by the way they look, by the way they walk, by the way they may accent, and people lose out so much when they do that. They have a preconceived notion of how I should sound, how I should look, how I should wear my hair, how I should be, how I should everything. And you know, as you mentioned, Ian, it's you add your race to it, it's a whole nother picture. So, and I agree with you. The mind can be the disability. The mind, it's a disabling factor, right? For some, it's an inclusive factor for others, but not always the case. I appreciate both of your pieces, Ian. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane. Thanks for the inspiration, Gordon.
Ian, I was wondering about your reiterated line that you can make it all go away. In that reiteration is hidden the irony of it all. You really can't make it go away, can you? It never does. And then the entire poem is a kind of an effort to make it all go away. But that you have to struggle so hard to make it all go away tells you that it doesn't go away, that it stays with you. That's the bugbear, I guess.
Exactly. It's people refuse to see or to look at the world as it is. And I mean, again, judging people, like by not seeing behind that skin color or behind that disability, behind that, if you like, that physical facade, the real person behind it. Yeah, I mean, I thought when I wrote it, I was being a bit clever, and I was I was quite sort of pleased with. But then again, when I read it back again, I think, wow, there's a lot of profound things in there, and it's the kind of poems I like, when of my own. When I look back, I think, oh, the kind of poems, the kind of comments that people come back at you with. It's because, well, whatever I thought when I was writing it, it's how it affects other people, and it kind of, if you like, asks questions. It demands people to think about certain things or certain issues. So rather than making a statement, it's more like opening up a door or a gate or a window that will kind of lead somewhere else, to more kind of deeper thinking, as opposed to just writing a poem which just makes a definitive statement, and that's it. You don't question it. I mean, my favorite kind of poems are the ones which are kind of left open, and do kind of invite people in to sort of think and question and see where it takes them. But thanks,
Ian
right?
and
It's
Ravi,
so
thank you
true.
for.
Let me just
Wait,
say this. Just one for a second. It's so true. It's true about poetry, just like it is about art. There's another depth. The way people may interpret something may not be how the author originally intended, and that's the beauty of art and all of the creative sciences, I'll call them, because when you look at something again and again, you get as I said, it has depth that you may not have intended. It may have been subconscious on your part. You write, you put it out there. You're brave enough to share, which is what we do. And then sometimes I'm so pleasantly surprised by how people will take something a whole nother way, and especially if you don't give a backstory. Sometimes that's a good thing, that you just leave them to their own devices and you say, okay, this is what happened. And then they take it a whole nother place. Like, I didn't even realize that that could be interpreted that way. And that just opens up a whole nother avenue of thought, not only to the author, the original author, but to all the other authors that can then piggyback on that nugget. That nugget. It could be one word, or like as Ravi said, a phrase, and key in on that and say, I'm going to run with that. Oh, it may make me want to draw something behind that, or it may make me want to write something or choreograph something or do something. That's what we do, and we don't have to explain it. It's our right to interpret. I don't have to justify why I may have specifically, that hit me, that resonated. What did that do? Was it a trigger? And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm saying that as a good thing. I'm saying that that's why we have the community, so that you can share that information and say, you know what, that's something I have to meditate on. You know what, I hadn't thought of that, or it reminds me of something in my childhood, or something that happens later today. I mean, who knows? But that's the joy of, to me, sharing our work. So, yeah.
Yes.
Brilliantly said. Yes.
Thank you, Diane. Ravi?
This conversation has kind of helped me process something that has eluded me for about a year and a half now. In February 2021, I caught the Delta strain of the COVID, and it was debilitating. I lost my sense of taste and smell and the ability to move. I struggled with just wanting to function. And so I was stripped of the senses that I had depended on and enjoyed. And the net effect of that was life was not pleasant. But I was so grateful that I didn't end up in hospital, let alone expire, which is what the Delta was doing to my peers in Brazil at the time. There was a 3-day window when you showed signs of the Delta and then you end up gone. That as I emerged, I had a clarity of, so what do I want to do next? It was almost like my entire life went on mute. Before that, I remember going into the trip just completely saturated with notions and thoughts about how I was going to experience that phase of my trip. And so, practically speaking, because I could not really walk because of the muscle atrophy and the way the virus consumed my muscles, and had lost about 15 pounds, 12 to 15 pounds at a time after 2 weeks, the only therapy I could give myself was to move. And the only way I could move in a way that was not egregious was to try and dance again. And so, on retrospect, you can call that the silver lining, you can call it the gift. But what the lack of senses did for me was to make it very crystal clear focused what each of these elements meant to me. So as I got it back, as I experienced it again, I could look at it very clearly. Do I want to embrace it? Do I want to work with it? What does it mean to me? And so I think that opportunity to examine, why is this so important to me? I think gave me the courage to dance with abandon, because that was the choice I made. I used to dance in only phrases and stutter. And I was so self-conscious because my brain would kick on and analyze as I was moving. But I chose after that to just F it all and just move, and move without any edit or analysis. Just move and ride the moment. And that choice, I think, lifted me out of that funk, that state of, wow, I could possibly emerge with a very different sense of the world, where I could not really taste and smell the things I used to enjoy, but only taste and smell the most horrid things. As my sense of smell and taste came back, all I could taste was the foul stuff, the back of my throat, the smell of the toilet, the smell of body odor, the unpleasant sort. But I could move. And I learned to like moving again, even though I couldn't do what I used to do. And that was good enough to get past my self conscious edit of not being pretty enough, not being expressive enough, not being cool enough. I just realized, you know what, I do like moving, and that's good enough. So I moved, and moved a lot more.
And Lucian, thank you so much for inviting me to watch your videos as you made them and recorded your progress. I really did not realize how sick Lucian was. He hid it from me. And I, as one of his closest people in his life, he hid it from me until he got so much better. I remember picking on you, giving you feedback on your footwork. And then he said, actually, I'm having a hard time moving my muscles. Then I said, oh.
No, the words were, I'm not moving vertically, because if I lowered myself by a few inches, I just dropped to the floor. I can't stand on my muscles. I have to lock my knees.
And that was the first time I actually realized that you just had a battle with life and death.
Yeah.
And
The first few times right after the video, I would have to fall over onto a couch or a bed because I was just spent. It was humbling. I felt like a fish flopping around, and again, it was an existential, this is not pretty, but this is who I am, and I'm expressing myself, and that's good enough. And I think that's where it silenced the, so what is expression? Does expression have to be pretty, really? Because I had so much gratitude and joy intrinsically in the way I was trying to express myself. And if this is truly all I can do, why does it have to measure up to something else that I had in my brain that it has to look a certain way? I'm expressing my happiness for being alive. Isn't that significant intrinsically? And so it completely changed my construct of what is good enough.
thank you for that, Shani. Glad you're here. Ravi, would you like to share next?
Before I start sharing screen, I'd like to apologize first for approaching the prompt that Diane has given us from a tangential angle, or really from a contrary perspective, really. Um, so here is the poem. I call it Making Sense, because in fact the poem also suggested itself to me because of Luz Irigaray um, first sentence in one of her essays, that the growing embryo in the mother's womb is already othered, and it others the mother already, even as an embryo. It's a very interesting concept in the development of identity, the consciousness of identity. Now, therefore, I'm punning on the word making here, it's more ironic than straightforward. Making sense. Just before I saw light, I heard speech, even before I had an ear for it. Much before I learned to love, I was enveloped in love and care I knew not after. Much before I manifested, had learned to survive and defend myself. Though unformed yet, I knew what it was to form, though I could never perfect the art. Much before I was known, I was othered, so grew crafty enough. Much before I could relate, I learned to manipulate and to exploit. And then I got a name, was taught to be clever and to hide my inadequacies. There grew after a certain obduracy and a nonchalance. An affected civility was mistaken for nobility, and all grew generous. My indifference was mistaken for virtue and was applauded. Now,
There was no need for you to apologize, Ravi. Don't apologize for your work.
Never apologize.
No, not to
A
me.
good line from John Wayne in that film, The Yellow Rose of Texas, I think it was. It was his great mantra: never apologize. But, especially not for writing such a lovely poem, anyway.
Absolutely.
Might apologize if you do something awful. Enough of that.
Even if it's awful, it might be entertaining to poke at Ravi.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the piece. I wasn't quite sure why you were apologizing. I thought it was. I like the perspective that you took. I expected you to have a perspective. It's the same way Cameron and Lucian expect me to have a different take on prompts than perhaps the obvious. There's a lot in there. Again, a lot of depth. There was, there's a reason why people read and write and play music around a mother to be. That sensibility of there's a consciousness, there's whatever your thinking might be about a fetus or whatever. There's a reason why people do that. There's a sense of understanding. There's a sense of whatever you may think religiously or politically. But being a mother myself, there's a connection regardless. And sometimes when children are born, they act as if they heard you. They know that music already. They're already beating. They're already, pounding at you before they're born. The elbows and the knees and everything that are coming at you. They have a sense. They know the music already. They're already jazzing and playing the drums. So I think that there's a lot of different ways one can interpret what you've written. And I guess it depends on the perspective of the person reading it. And that's why we don't judge work. You either interpret it the way you want to from your own perspective, your own life experience. And if you don't like it, you don't reread it. If you're brave enough, you reread it and try to figure out what it is about it that you don't like, that might upset you. But we just don't judge. If that's not what I do, I should not talk for anyone else. For myself, if a work disturbs me, then for myself, maybe I need to move away from it for a while, do something else, and then come back to it and say, what is it that bothers me about the work? There isn't anything about it that bothers me. It makes me pensive. It makes me think about. There are people that will not appreciate it and for what you're saying. But there are others, I think, that would find it intriguing. So don't apologize.
Thank you. The reason why I apologize was because I started off by believing that most of us are quite self-centered, and then throughout our life we try to hide it by masking it in a variety of ways, and then affecting certain positive attitudes that really are but a thin veil to really postpone our real manifest selves.
Thank you, Ravi.
Diane, who would you like to hear from next?
Avocado.
Okay, it's called No Lilting Lullaby. I doubt I make use of all that I have. I'm a poor steward, not because of lack, but because I'm slack about optimizing my senses to their fullest. If I lose any of them, it's like being on perpetual pause. Imagine a vacuum, no sound but that of silence. No coil, no nightjar, no philomel, no philosophical voice, no caramel, no thunder clapping, no waves crashing, no lilting lullaby. Just a stilted goodbye. If I can't hear my own voice, how can you amidst all the noise? That's really the rub. The purest of ironies forged at the highest, hottest of temperatures. Forgery and trickery trickle, yet end up sending torrents that rend me apart. The Red Sea is my heart. My song and dance routine has drowned in it. In it lies a broken arrow, directionless. Like water, well, it has welled up in my eyes as tears. They snuff out my ears. What did you just say? No lilting lullaby, just a stilted goodbye.
Beautifully read, Jen.
Wow.
Thank you.
That was a thunderous drowning. I mean, it was a drowning. I could see the Red Sea. I felt it. It had a lot of sound to it. It was not just visual. It had sound to it. To me, it was beautiful. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you for the prompt.
And I think Diane called out Justin.
Rick.
Oh, no, Rick first.
Rick,
See, I don't
Sorry,
know
Rick.
if does it to you too, Rick. I don't know what's up with her, but the two of us, I put it in the chat, trying to help her out.
Yes,
Rutan.
Diane was making it so easy for me, and I still flipped it around. Try it.
Okay, Rick, then E. Justin. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have to tell you, I had the most amazing dream just before waking. I was at the College of Poets, the college of such wonderful people as you. And I got a sense that I should look around. So as I look around, I see what we all have in the back of our mind as a fear. I see this terrible orange red mushroom cloud. And I thought, no, it can't end like this. And then as I turned, I was taken, picture that those spheres from Jurassic Park. I'm suddenly rolling down this hill through beautiful green gardens and lush, just heavenly buildings. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is where we need to go. This is, oh my God, this is the place. So I want to leave you that thought as a starting point. Now, regards losing a sense, let me share this one and then one little one, if I may. This is called touchless, touch-free, markdown. It's not academic, not sympathetic, not synthetic. So wildly apoplectic, so near and dear kinetic. The synthetic jury's out, the furies pout. It's neither romantic nor pedantic. My fingers reach, but COVID's erratic moped never arrives nor collides. He stays apart. The dangling, darkling art composes a fence that ne'er relents and makes each touchless, compounded luncheonette contest it's never met. And such regrets, my lonely hunch, this momentary solitary stunt, are the stuff of stifled life. Not once, not even twice, a hug that's missed, a cheek not kissed, that special seaward turn as passion's patient burns, the ocean's vastness yearns. But COVID minces and somehow convinces another touchless virgin god. Erase this arousal, foreign faint. The moist complaint has stained the plate of state. Left alone, my solitary soul will take the faker's call. So losing touch. And then this other that I would love to share. It just takes a second. It's called Miss Nabizada. We will. Miss Nabizada until. Miss Nabizada is an Afghan civil servant who was just murdered. And she insists, Miss Nizabada, with her fist, Miss Nizabada. Though the Taliban wanted the flaunted man to lead their band, they could not hide. Miss Nabizada, no command, no fearful present confined this mind to some hidden desert. Miss Nabizada from eastern lands stood for election, which win no women can. Miss Nabizada led the way where they would not say. Instead, they slay Miss Nabizada and her brother wounded and bloodied others. Miss Nabizada didn't flee. She didn't run to peace, but stayed and spoke her piece. The Taliban could not stand these truths be told by such a brave heart, this woman bold, confined. They want no freedoms taunt. These unholy fools would try to hide these women jewels. Each woman imprisoned inside her what? Home? Or is it tomb? This lawful, flawed bloom. She was a servant of the people, her life enshrined, now her story's steeple. Miss Nabizada would not be stayed. She was brave, she was not afraid. She knew the truth. These fearful men couldn't buy her, send her home again. These men couldn't stop the mighty heart. Miss Nabizada played her part. Hannah Newman of the European Parliament said she was killed in darkness, but the Taliban build their system of gender apartheid in full daylight. Thank you. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Rick. There are those that would like to disable us or limit us, right? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're on that battlefront every day. God bless you, women who bring us into the world and can somehow be devalued. What?
Rick, it was very touching that you talked about Nabizada, because this is just the tip of the malady and the monstrosity that's staring at us, and then we do not wish to confront it. What's happening in Afghanistan is a repeat of what had happened earlier. And the civilized world sitting back and then not doing anything about it is frightening. I mean, how long are we going to sit and then allow somebody to ride roughshod over us, allow somebody to monsterize everything around us? Should we use defense of civility and uh, propriety to innervate us so much that we don't act against such demonic deeds that's happening in Afghanistan?
Thank you, Ravi. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. You all value each other, and that is so beautiful. Carry it everywhere you go. Thank you, my dear friends.
Thank you, Rick. Diane, is it Justin's turn?
Yes, thank you.
Hello, BTL. Hello, everyone. Just wanted to point out Lucian's earrings. I thought they were USBs, but I closer look, they were like Japanese bookmarks. Yeah.
Yeah, Hanafuda
Okay.
earrings from worn by Tanjiro and Demon Slayer.
Oh, okay. Really cool. From your students?
Well, it started off with this. My very shy Vietnamese students were doing a little bit of a spa and they were painting each other's nails. And I walked by and they surprised me, Mr. Tan, would you like your nails painted? And I'm like, sure. And the other students were horrified that I would, and he was like trying to dissuade the girl who just asked spontaneously. And she did a really good job. This is almost a week old now and it's still looking great. And then I got these earrings because I'm starting to enjoy the concept of Tanjiro the Demon Slayer and what he represents. So that's the earrings he wears. And it just so happens that Tanjiro has a scar from the work he does slaying demons on this part of his face. So it's a very natural cosplay choice.
Demon Slayer MC. I see. Okay. Oh, I also want to empathize with the part where you felt very sick. I remember when I had an asthma attack and I ended up in the hospital, and like all I could think about was this poem that say in the throes of sickness everything fades away, and all I could think of was the illness grip on my windpipe and how to pry its bony fingers away.
Your
Yeah.
next breath, you're reduced to you just want one more breath.
Yeah, like a near-death experience is very scary. Okay, and here's a poem. Okay, I based it on Importance of Being Earnest, Ernst Oscar Wilde. It says like study and reading give a permanent income on thought. So I call it restart. If you lose one of your senses, is it really like in Marvel's Daredevil, where the other senses are taken to another level? Does this happen immediately? An instantaneous heightening of the senses, or does one's awareness gradually feel closed in, like endless pasture closed off by whitewashed fences? What do you miss most, the brawn or the brain that you boast? Perhaps what you will miss is not what others do. You miss your company or empathy more. True? They say we don't fully appreciate what we have until we lose it one day, forsook and left. Then do we beat our breast and mourn, spend our days downcast and forlorn? Either way, would I be able to look on the bright side when faced with daily disability, unable to, for myself, hide? If it be sight I choose to forsake, I return to primordial darkness before God is snake. No more cartoons in technicolor and dream colors code. What will float my mind's eye boat? Will I give my hearing and read in braille? How indeed I would begin to feel my meal. Blindness obvious strangers, pitying glance, My emotions fall torrid with my fingers dance. Smell and taste glorious foods that melt exquisitely. Not now that I have a whiff and taste, admittedly. Touch then from a poke in the ribs to a full-fledged hug. No, no, do not ask me to from this sense unplug. Then I would give my memories dear. I would sacrifice my darkest loves and greatest fears. I offer my anxieties and moods to the updates of the record dudes. And live again and experience it all if you'd be so kind. The full impact of a beginner's mind. Thank you. So I sort of identified with what Diane said about the mind thing, like mind illness thing, illness in the mind. Yeah. Thank you.
You encapsulated quite a bit in that, Justin. You really did. That was a beautiful piece. And it also made me remember of another instance where I was working with a blind student. And I used to do recordings for the Lighthouse. I used to put science books, because I have a science background. I would do the recordings of some of the textbooks for the college. And she became blind due to abuse by her father. So she was born with sight, but due to abuse, she lost her sight. And I asked her, would you teach me how to read Braille? And she said, sure. And so she would give me some text to try to read in Braille. And I guess one day we met and I was just reading through it kind of quick. And she was like, wow, you really caught on to this kind of fast. And I said, well, yeah, she said, wait a minute. Are you looking? I said, well, I can only do Braille if I can look at the bumps. So, which of course defeats the purpose because it's supposed to be by touch, obviously, right? And so I said, I thought you said you were Braille, but you were blind. But I was reading the bumps because I was getting frustrated with the fact that I couldn't really feel the bumps of the letters. So that was the end of teaching me how to read Braille. Okay. I kind of defeated the purpose, but she could tell I must have been cheating because I was getting through it so quickly. So I say that to say, I tried, and it gives you a certain level of appreciation for the fact that it's bumps. You got to know where the bumps are. I get it, but if I look at them, I can read it. It's just, it was my way of just trying to deal with the fact that it's amazing that you could read and use Braille so efficiently. And when you have to, you would not just roll over. You would do whatever you have to do to be able to communicate. It's just, and in the way that she lost her sight was just so devastating. She was one of my college students. It did not stop her. And I encouraged her. And I got her everything she needed, both she could hear. So as a matter of fact, she knew it was me in one of her textbooks because she asked me, she said, did you do a chemistry book, such and such edition? And I said, yeah. She said, I knew that was your voice. So, I mean, we had a wonderful rapport, and she used the best that she could, and she achieved, and she graduated. And I mean, but I had to tell you my Braille story because I did cheat. It's true. I confess. I did. Not supposed to read the Braille. You're supposed to feel the Braille. I get it. All right.
I feel you.
She forgave me.
Diane, you need a large bump Braille edition.
I hear your pain. I can't feel it, but I can hear it.
So I'm now that you brought it up, I'm kind of curious. Are all the bumps the same? Could you get an edition with the bumps that are more pointy like needles, or can you change the texture so that you can feel it differently?
Now, all the bumps are the same. Okay, don't try to change Braille. It's the configuration. Well, I did English language. I don't know. I don't know any other. I didn't know any other Braille, but that's no. There's no point. Ah,
I'm just saying this somewhat facetiously, but when I see Braille on steel and I rub it my finger on the elevator versus plastic, it, I feel it differently, and I'm a very tactile person, so there's a possibility that if you change the surface, the texture might be more easily perceived.
Excuse me, Luciana,
maybe.
you're talking about font now.
Absolutely, yes. I'm applying the same thing because you might actually perceive the touch differently with different surfaces.
Then we talk about economics. Some people have access to steel plates, others don't have access.
So what if the ancient cuneiform was actually, Braille? You're just feeling the little wedge marks.
If you were then doing it with steel, you'd have to qualify as some kind of fitter or engineer first, wouldn't you, to be able to actually chisel out the things.
But also realize some people have a problem with touch with feel. So again, oh my goodness, that would be another challenge that one would have to deal with. I mean, there are some diabetics that their sense of touch is very off, we would think, but and other conditions that may cause touch to be a problem. So there are individuals that will deal with the challenge.
I'm also slightly facetious because I actually felt a Braille printer or display where you put your palm flat and it raises pins. I can feel that. If you put it on my fingertips, I'm like you. I don't feel anything. But when you put your palm on there, it's still, and then you raise the bumps. I can map that in my brain much more quickly, and that's how I learned to start to perceive the language. So, somewhat facetious, but that helped me.
I guess there's still hope for me. I guess there's still hope for me. Thank you.
I can't read Braille cursive either, sorry.
We'll have to get an interpreter for you, Lucian. Funny. All right. Diane Ward, who would you like to listen to next?
Did you write something, Kemla?
I wrote many starts, but I could not finish any. But I will tell you a story instead. Since you were talking about blindness and Braille, when I was in college, I was, you know what? I'll read the poem. But can you call somebody else and I'll pull it up? Now I have a poem, but I'll have to look it up.
Okay, so you told me that Clive is not sharing. Thank you,
Yes.
Clive, for being here. I think we've done everyone in the room, right? Yes.
Does Lucian want to read something?
No.
He doesn't want. Okay.
I'll
Then
set it in Braille.
He said it in,
Oh.
you're going to write it in Braille?
Ooh.
Okay. So I'm going to read Blind Mouse to you. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found, was blind, but now I see. Blind. That's a myth. You will go blind if you sit too close to the television. Don't sit so close to the TV, you will go blind. My elders warned and worried that sitting too close would bring me blindness. Yet I could not turn a blind eye or block my ears to the shouting, screaming, insults, hatred, no sound-proof rooms. Neither my hands nor tissue could mute the anger. I wish the TV could make me blind and deaf. Myth. Blind as a bat. Princess meets prince, and they lived happily ever after. I grew up with Snow White Cinderella. Someday my prince will come, true love's first kiss. My first kiss was stolen on a rooftop tennis court. Some girls were blinded by his good looks and a bad boy image, a French Chinese païen. I was a good Christian middle school girl, a veritable tomboy who I didn't want to judge a book by his cover. After a game of tennis, he grabbed me, pushed me against the wall, forcing a kiss on my lips. I pushed him off and kneed him. What the hell are you doing? We have to take our relationship to the next level. Huh? What relationship? You're my friend, that's it. He stormed off home, my lips bruised. Next day at school, there was a rumor I had sex with a shy Filipino boy. Everybody laughed. First, they laughed at my alleged partner who had no interest in girls. Second, they laughed at the source of my jilted suitor. Finally, they laughed at me. I was a square library geek, goody goody, blinded by my own naivete. A bat could have seen this coming. Myth. A case of blind leading the blind. Have you met the blind girl on the second floor? How can she be there in grad school with us? Who's going to help her? As we were all too polite to speak of these veiled concerns, false compassion. We were seminarians. I bumped into her in the kitchen. Oh, hello. She turned to me. I swallowed hard, staring at her sunken eye sockets covered with flaps for eyelids. She introduced herself, stuttering, responded in kind. We eventually became friends. She taught me how to cook by touching her food in a frying pan, her fingers callous. She shared she was born with a rare genetic condition without eyeballs. Not only was she blind, she was colorblind. She, a white woman, fell in love with a black man. Blinded by prejudice, her parents refused to come to their wedding, so she honored me by letting me pick out her dress. Sitting too close to a TV will not cause blindness, but too much screen time, working on a computer, playing video games, texting and posting on Facebook may strain your eyes. Many bats can see almost as well as humans. Although my friend had no eyes, she accepted her blindness. She led me in my blindness and judgments about disability to deeper understanding. I did not see the mote in my eyes. Blind mouse, why do you cry? I saw the surgeon, no hope for my eyes. The day of LASIK, I traveled 3.5 hours to see a surgeon who says, "Ma'am, I'm afraid that I cannot in good conscience perform the procedure. Your corneas are too thin. You will be blind." In a Comfort Inn suite booked for 3-day recovery, I wept in anger at my childhood optometrist who prescribed me ill-fitting hard contacts, at myself for missing my follow-up before flying back to college. I wept with regret for forcing lenses into screaming eyes and worship of vanity. I wept in remembrance for 2 weeks, my eyes bandaged in darkness, light, searing flame, corneas sanded, ground down. Bandages came off. I emerged from my hole, gradually got used to sunshine, donned my thick glasses. I lost depth perception, my heart, dimension, direction, tolerated toric soft lenses for a while, then eventually that option disappeared. LASIK, my last hope, now extinguished. Crying in a hole, I remain a blind mouse with thick glasses. Thank you,
What a
Diane.
journey. What a journey. Wow. That it's hard to respond to that. You know, it's I was there every moment of it, in anticipation, in hoping, in still having hope, having faith, having. Now you have to deal with what's presented, right? The reality, and but there's always people that can help. I mean, it's amazing. You know, you met this young lady in grad school, and obviously she made it through undergrad. She made it through high school. She made it through all the other levels of her education. She's in grad school. When I was in grad school, I had a colleague of mine. You know, my background is also in dance, and I asked her what she wanted to do, and she said she wanted to teach. She wanted to teach deaf people to dance, and she said the way she would do that is you would feel the beat on the floor. So that's how you would know how to move. And that was going to be her mission. And so that's what she did. And so there's always people willing to say, no, you're able, not for disability, you're able. And she says, I don't understand. Deaf people can dance. You think they can't hear the music? They can feel the music. They can feel it. You feel it through the floor. And where there's a will, there's a way, is a saying. And in some instances, that's exactly what it is. And I felt, you know, when you said, you know, about her sockets and her cornea, and I bet she sees more than most of us do with glasses, right? People find a way, and I encourage whenever I can, which is why I got the degree I got, and I think that's what we need to do. We can learn a lot from each and every person. And you were fortunate enough and wise enough to realize that that was a valuable friendship. I mean, you were gifted with picking out her wedding gown. I mean, come on, that's important. That's an important role. It really is. And I hope you realize how significant she felt you were. She trusted you to be able to help her with that. A day that she's supposed to feel her most beautiful. Look her most beautiful, right? That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing that piece. There were so many areas in it that were just amazing. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Diane, having you be the Siam artist today has really changed my perspective on things. Oftentimes, as the host of BTL, I feel like I'm supposed to be a host. And I stay in a very, very logical or systematic. I have all these things that I have to do. I have to take care of this and that. You know how that is when you're a host. But today, I was so enthralled in the conversations and the fact that you were listening so closely to everyone here. I could just be in the moment and let go. And I realize, in some ways, I'm humbled that I am not indispensable as a host. And yet, what it opened for me is a chance to be an artist. I even forgot that I had any poems related to this written. And I was going to read Blind Mouse at first, but then I landed on Blind, thinking it was Blind Mouse, and I read my fight with blindness and my resentment and my anger, and I had to deal with that. It's not pretty. And I thank Lucian for scolding me constantly for slipping into that mode of host, which is one of the reasons why he said, he recommended that we go this direction and said, our community is more than able to share that load with you. And so you opened my eyes and my heart, all of you, in the new space today, and I thank you for that. Everyone, give it up for Diane Murray Ward, our Cy Young artist.
Camlin, you got lots of people around you to hold your purse.
I think I'd rather they run the list.
That too.
How can I know how to love if I don't let people in? My friend Corinne knew how to ask for help. I still am learning how to do that. I'm still learning to believe I am lovable, capable, valuable, and able. And I'm realizing that I don't have to do it by myself, but I have to get it up from here and believe it in here. Thank you, everyone, for another lovely Between the Lines. Next week, we have Lucian as our Shok artist. He's going to be sharing with us his journey as a director, a filmmaker, and I want to see his drone. So, until next week, my friends, the prompt next week, I believe, Lucian, is cheekily flying.
Cheekily flying? No, just flying.
Just flying, correct. But I'm being cheeky about it.
Yeah, please put some punctuation between cheekily and flying.
Oh, you think I'm a poet or something?
No, I know our community. I don't want cheeks in the flying.
Flying cheeks. Dumbo.
Those earrings will come in handy. To be honest, actually, Lucia, when I first saw you, I thought they were price tags on your. I thought, I wonder how much they're charging for it for each one for each year.
Here comes the auction.
So until next week, everyone, thank you again. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Diane. Put all your poems and what you would like to share on the thread on Club Mermaid. See you next week. Flying.